Okay, we're here for installment 2 of the basic DSLR series. Today we're going to go over shutter priority mode, and specifically shutter speeds and how you can control those and why you might control those. So you have your basic DSLR again, and you have a dial. It may be on the left, it may be on the right. Regardless, it probably has a little green mode known as green dot or auto. And then it may have a series of these other picture modes with a flower and a person's face and a mountain and all this stuff, little person running. We can ignore these modes because they don't do anything that you can't do yourself, and you can probably do it better. And so the important modes are M for manual, A for aperture priority, S for shutter priority, and P for program. There's a lot of other silly things people call them, like P for professional mode, but we'll leave the comedy to others. So in this installment we're going to put it on shutter priority mode, that's S, and in this mode you control the shutter speed and the camera is going to set the aperture for you. And so I turn my camera on and I'm in shutter priority mode. As I spin this dial, it adjusts the shutter speed 1/15 of a second, 1/10 of a second, and 1/8 of a second, up or down however I want, and then the camera decides on the actual shutter or the actual aperture, which right now it's telling me it's too low, it can't adjust, and that's just because it's dark right here. There, at 1/8 of a second it's f3.5, at 6 it's f5, etc. And so that's basically how you control it. Now, what do you want to do with that? And simply put, you're just telling it how fast a shutter speed you want. You want a faster shutter speed to freeze action. This is very common in sports or shooting birds in flight. Anything that's moving fast, you may want to stop the action. And this is how you would do it. A high shutter speed, say 1/200th of a second or 1/2000th of a second. Those are high shutter speeds and they freeze motion. The other way you can go is a slower shutter speed, a 30th of a second or a 15th of a second or even a full second. Those are slow speeds, and typically you would use those to on objects that aren't moving so much. You might use those slower shutter speeds for still life, shooting like the stuff that's sitting here. It's not going to move. At these slower shutter speeds you may need vibration reduction. You may also need a tripod. For really long shutter speeds you don't have a choice, you have to use a tripod. A 30-second shutter speed for shooting the northern lights or star trails or something, you definitely have to be set up on a tripod. If you're shooting a longer lens, a 200mm lens or a 300mm lens or even a 600mm lens, in order to actually hand hold those you need really fast shutter speeds because the shake of the camera is magnified in that. And so with a 300mm lens you might want to make sure you have 1/500th of a second or faster if you're going to hand hold it. And so now I think I'll just show you some sample photos that I took on location to just kind of give you an idea. And I shot a river, which I think you'll enjoy, of course freezing the water with a higher shutter speed, and then I made the water the blurry flow that I'm sure you've seen in pictures and wondered how that was done by using a slower shutter speed. So let's take a look at that next. This photo was taken at 1/3200th of a second, and that's a very fast shutter speed. You can see that the water is frozen to the point that there's even water droplets frozen in the air on the top right side. This is what a fast shutter speed does. This photo was taken at 1/20th of a second, and you can see that the water is all blurred, and some of the water droplets that were caught in the air, you can see that they're actually streaks now, and this is what a slower shutter speed will do. And this shot was at 1/1250th of a second, and again you can see that the water is very much frozen in time. There's not a lot of blur to it. It's very crisp. And here is 1/8 of a second, and again you can see the water is blurred. It gives that elegant flowy look to the water. If it was a person or whatnot it would just look bad, but in water we get this very pretty elegant look. In review, you put your camera in the S mode for shutter priority mode, and this allows you to directly control the shutter speed. slow shutter speeds to blur objects, or for stationary objects that you don't need fast shutter speeds, fast shutter speeds in order to freeze fast-moving objects, or to help counteract the vibration inherent to holding a camera and lens.